guys, we got my boy Zeke on the Janick 1500 trencher. I don't believe they're making those anymore, but great machine. And we came down here going about 4-inch depth because we had this low spot. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's washing out from the road, so we wanted to get deep. And then after we got past it, we lifted up an inch to about the 3-inch mark. That's where we're going right now. So the business end of this thing is that Kohler engine. You can see he's hitting a rock right there. The blade on this thing is it's on a PTO shaft. It's on a PTO shaft, and it runs at the same rate as a PTO. Hydraulic motor on the other side. And the blade has mine grade carbide ends on it that can cut through roots and rock, or just pull them up and out like he just kicked one aside there. Show you the business end of it here. Sorry about the noise. We're on a property that was new construction, and we're out here in gravel pit country, so a lot of rock, a lot of gravel underneath, and any black dirt on top has a tendency to get hard pan. So Zeke decided to go with he's got the differential lock on right now, so the wheels are locked together. And then handle pivots up and down depending on how tall you want it to be. Really bummed they quit making these when the creator retired. Like I said, it is an awesome machine. Going to be our landmark tree. Hopefully it comes back for the owner. Deer got after it and rubbed the top of that apple tree a little bit. The reason we're going to come a little past that is the transmitter then will transmit the signal back to that line of crab apples, which he'll replant, I think is his plan. So that'll give the dogs a really good visual as to where their boundary ends. Alright, so that was about a 7-minute run there through hard pan all the way to here. You can see down there is our white flag where we're going to eventually hook up the wire. Alright, so now what we've got to do that our twist is all the way out here is we've got to swap out our wire right? So that we're going to do a single wire boundary. So the twist on these in-ground dog fences, the twist wire cancels out the signal. So that whole run right there from the building, that's just where a transmitter is. That's what gives radio signal to the transmitter. And the twisted wire means the dogs will be able to run across that. So the twisted wire does not give a signal to the collar, okay? So what we have to do now is, you can see this third spool is in line with the wiring shoe, right? Okay, so that third spool we've got to swap out to 1,000-foot single strand now. So that's what we're going to do. And this is pretty cool the way they got this set up. I have to loosen up this nut and this nut, because we want to open that up right there. And then this tab is what opens up the wiring shoe. So if I were to need to change a spool in the run, you know, if I was doing 2,000 feet or something, I would be able to just swap those out by flipping those open. But I tighten them up pretty good when we're doing this, because otherwise this has been known to rattle open, you know, if you don't have it real tight. So we got our 7/16 wrenches here. That's what these are. There we go. So we got that open. That's the lock for this one, and this is real tight now. Okay, now that that's loose, what I want to do is take this out of the way so it doesn't get pinched right here. You can see that opens that up. So now I'm able to just quickly remove that. Got the tab right here. So that is all loose from the machine now. Okay. And we can, up here, bud. So now we take our compression off, remove that spool, give our shelves enough to tie in. And then the spool needs to be coming off the top of the reel. Okay. That's your spring tension so that the spool doesn't roll a bunch on its own. Okay, so now this is right down here. It's real easy to load this, putting it in, closing it. You close this latch down and then you tighten up both of those bolts that we just loosened. That's of course the design of the whole thing. And then once you're done with that, you clip in and you're rocking, right? After you tighten up these bolts. However, we're gonna do what my operator here, Zeke Man, likes to do instead, is you just clip the wire up here when you're done with it, right? So this, let's just imagine this is all the way back up to the spool. And in order to switch it without having to get your tools out, right, to loosen those, he just cuts it, pulls it out, swaps the spool, and then threads it back through manually. So this is the latch that we loosened. Okay, this is the wiring shoe right here with the smooth edge where the wire comes out and it goes back in the trench, right? So the normal process is you get it in there and then you run it into your shoe, and then this you don't want on this side because it'll get all scuffed up. So you make sure that's in play right there behind the lever. And then up here you clip the little carabiner clip right there that he's got welded to a bracket, and then that's what holds it all in line right here on the wheel. Okay, now in order to do this without tools, right, so let's say you had left these tight. This is the way my operator likes to do it. So he goes down through the carabiner, down through the slot in the wiring shoe, and as long as there's no dirt gummed up down here, you just pull it out the end, and then we got the old screwdriver up here. And now to get going on your next run, you just need to put some pressure on this. So we always wrap, twist, and then whichever way we're going, I think we'll go that way. So we would be stabbing it in the ground like that, and then you stand on that when you drop in and you go, you know, on your next line. That's how we would do that. So that is how you swap out spools, new wire in, and we're ready to rock. Alright, so that'll give him enough back pressure to keep the wire in the ground, otherwise it'll just pull right with him. Now he's dropping the wheel down. Adjust the handle. So you can see the amount of tension on that running back to our stake. A lot of times we use a screwdriver. It doesn't really matter what you use. You just gotta make sure you got it wrapped around something because of the pressure. And then this is where we'll make our connection here. You can see that's where our twist is coming back from the building. Okay, so right there is where we'll do our connections when we get the wire all trenched. But you can see how heavy that's pulling still from the machine, so we won't be able to pull that out until it gets all the way around the horn. Alright, now this is a big one. If I remember right, we're at about 1,200 feet, so I'm going to time stamp this. Just so we know how long it took us. Because that was about 7 minutes to run all the way out there, and I suppose what is that? It's got to be 50 yards at least. And then swapped out the spools right here, did a little instructional video, so we'll see how long it takes us just to run the wire. Alright, so here's a little bit of a trick. You see I don't know if you can see that dip right there. So he's standing in a dip right now. Okay, and what's going on right there is when you go into a dip, after you leave it, the machine will tend to lift the lowest spot up. So what he did as he passed the low spot was he smashed the trench shut. Okay, so you can see the wires staying in that trench even as he rises right now, just because he smashed it shut in the lowest spot. And you'll have to do that if you have any washouts or anywhere it just seems like there's a low spot, is where you gotta make sure you tuck it down. Alright, still got a long way to go here. Trying to get right back around to there. That was a tough one. I can see why the owner did not want to do that himself. He's just getting done over there. We had to go to a new spool, so I know we're over 1,000 feet, so we had to, right by about that rock pile, we had to swap out to a new spool. So he's just finishing up over there, and now we'll do all the splices and get it run through the building and everything. But wanted to show you this right here. This is always the toughest part. People always ask, well, how do you get through the driveway? Well, if it's gravel, you just cut it. So this probably took us, this probably took us 15 minutes all by itself, and I had to lean on the machine on the side as well. And so that's cut down in there pretty good. You can see the owner's poor guy tried to do it before with a pickaxe. You can see his blue stuff. So yeah, anyways, we're down there 4 inches. Just crazy. Cutting this driveway, that was really hard packed, but you got to get it deep in there so washouts don't get rid of your wire and everything. But yeah, and then right along here we side hilling it, so we had the differential lock on it so we didn't spin. So now we go around and collect all the rocks we pulled out with the saw blade, and then we'll get after the connections in the yard and in the building. All right, that is a wrap. That's what it looks like after we test. Got no beeping in the garage, and then we drive back over it with the trencher. So you can see, or well, maybe you can't see, that right center frame there is where the trench is. So if we get any kind of good rain here, you probably won't even be able to see that. So what we've got is our flags just inside the fence, and I don't put them right on the fence line, the wire line, just because I want the owner to be able to come around when it rains again, and squish it down with the, whatever golf cart, lawnmower, whatever tire you want to pick that can squish that trench again. But we go about 1 flag every 4 steps. Looking good. I always leave it up to the landowner what they'd like to do, because they've got to drive over it. Okay, so you don't want to put a flag in there that's short that they can drive over if they've got the lower cars, because they'll poke the tire. Okay, especially if you have teen drivers, you just don't want to leave it up to chance. So what I usually say is, if you can find a white rock, like a really light colored rock, you go one of those every about 8-10 feet, or you can just spray a white line straight across there, and the dogs will get it. They'll connect it in their eyes. All right, everybody, just some tips for when you're all done. Tell your landowner, it's not dumb to take some measurements to the wire from a definite unmoving landmark. So the corner of a building, straight north to the wire, how far out on the paved driveway, whatever you have as a landmark is a great idea to measure out to, so then you don't have to call anybody when it's time to locate the wire because you're going to do some digging or whatever. So just remember that a dog fence wire is not something that you will have located by the utility folks when you call your number for whenever you're going to dig and utilities get marked. It's going to have to be marked by either the company that installed it, or you're going to have to get a locator yourself. And we'll maybe have a video on that someday. I'm not sure if I do or not yet, but I'll put the link down in the description for those of you that would like a locator of your own. They're fairly simple. They are not durable. I go through a couple of years just because the technology, I'm sure the technology is good, but the construction is not. So thanks for sticking around. If this was of any help to you, please like and subscribe. We really appreciate the support.